exactly on time for events like this, then apologies, but we're 60 seconds ahead of schedule, just because we're double checking on some feeds and making sure that it's going to YouTube and other places. So guys, if one of you can check your feeds on YouTube, and we'll see if it's actually working.
Yep.
Yep, there it is. So yeah, if you want to grab that link, or I can grab the link, I guess.
Trying to grab it.
I'm
grab
not.
the person.
I'm not seeing the link for that on YouTube.
I'll find it. Don't worry. Hang on.
I got it.
Terrible.
Here we go. I'll put it in the private. I'll put it in the main chat for everybody who might be able to see it.
Okay.
And then for anyone, and there it is in the private chat again.
Thank you.
I assume someone on LinkedIn can come in. You guys will have to keep track of the LinkedIn one. Is that okay? On the LinkedIn page.
I can go over there.
Go over there and just make sure that
I'll go over there.
All right. So actually, now we're 10 seconds, 11 seconds past you. So in case you are one of those people that just joins on time, welcome. We had to do a little bit of checking with Restream and third-party services that connect to LinkedIn, especially. You always got to be a little careful. And it's just a quirk of LinkedIn, even though we're breaking a rule by talking about LinkedIn on LinkedIn, which is a rule.
The form of which we shall not mention.
It's just very quickly. You're not allowed to connect a live stream to LinkedIn, to a scheduled event, any earlier than 15 minutes before going live, and up to 2 hours after you go live for some reason.
Quick question: Are you on your page,
give us much
or
room
on
in case anything goes wrong?
Yeah, are you on the page or on your profile?
I don't know. Does that link work?
I'm looking. I'm in LinkedIn trying to figure out where you are.
Oh. You need a link to the LinkedIn thing?
No, I'm looking. I'm looking to see if it's showing up live. So that's all.
Well, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always useful.
LinkedIn's always exciting.
It is. It's an adventure.
So here, I'll put in the overall chat and in the private chat the page for the event itself. And I'm just going to assume that we're live at this point because I got to get going.
Absolutely.
So welcome everybody. And this month's event is about insights and ideas, and how insights are actually, while rarer, more valuable than ideas, but they're both, there's methods for generating both. And the more you have, the better. Nobody ever suffered from too many ideas, maybe. And just a quick note, if you're seeing this and you're you're seeing it after it's live, or you just come in, there will be a PDF with the slides and some links and a whole bunch of stuff sent out after this event is over. But you have to register, because that's the only way I get your email address, because I can't really send it individually to a bunch of people on LinkedIn. LinkedIn will freak out thinking I'm some sort of bot.
And you are live on the page of the platform of which we do not speak.
All right, so let's get into this. Recently, we finished making 100 videos that no one watched. And that's not exactly true. Lots of people saw them, but not really a lot of people. But the earliest ones we made, and we made quite a lot of them, John, as I was going back, and I include some links later to 3 of them. We made videos about creativity and creative thinking, and how they're different, and how to sort of utilize, both creativity and creative thinking individually. And over time, we started that back in March, and over time, it has become clear that I thought I had in my business as a copywriter, maybe for other people's audience. I thought I understood my marketing and sales process, and it turns out I do not. It turns out I just have a very weird job. And I think everyone's job, or most people's job, is also weird like mine. They don't see it yet. And so a lot of this is going to be talking about why it's different than what you think. So here's why. If you're in graphic design, if you're any kind of artist, if you're a copywriter, for advertising, whatever, you have what's called your portfolio. And your portfolio is like a list of things, and shows off what you've written and stuff. And I, like every other or most other copywriters, I have a portfolio. It's on my website. You can go to waycreative.com and look at it. The problem, looking at the stats over time and sort of deconstructing calls that I have with prospective clients who eventually become clients. Hey, Dr. V, you want to guess what percentage of the people who are prospects and then become clients, you want to know what percentage of them ever mention my portfolio?
Probably 0.001.
And it's a truism that you have to have the portfolio. But I know from the web stats, and because it's my website, Nobody looks at it. Like nobody cares. I mean, maybe there's sort of a safety issue and they like that it exists, but no one bothers. I've yet to have one single question on anything. And I write for, some big name companies with millions or even tens of millions of customers each. But it's like, don't care at all. Instead, all anyone ever talks about in these, this is one of the pages on my website, all anyone talks about are concepts, like the sort of insights and angles and stuff that I take. In fact, on the main part of my website, the main page, if you went to my website, it doesn't even say like, Dean's copywriting or examples of Dean's it says like, see Dean's approach to copywriting. All anyone ever talks about is these kind of things, which have nothing to do really with copywriting, or maybe only tangentially, right?
It's not your final
They,
work.
they have to do with an approach or
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
angle that you take,
Mhm.
which is just another way of, I think this is done, right? This is just another way of saying I get hired because of insights I've had before, but no one ever cares about them again. And then they pay me for ideas. And for a long time, I thought I was, in the idea and writing business. And it turns out I'm in the insight and idea business. And the writing is, just sort of incidental. I have a slide coming up later that talks about what we get paid for. And it's not what I thought I was getting paid for. And so given that, we thought about topics for October. Last month, we did a 90-minute reincarnation live of the positioning workshop that I do with clients, where I help them figure out like what their angle is, so we can sort of approach their market and make them stand out. And this one's a lot more fun. And this one is about ideas and insights and how to get more of both, right? And now I'm going to break my number one rule when I write for other people. I'm going to read what's on the slide. But everything here, I'll stand on all of it, right? Ideas are cheap. I can generate 100 in an hour, no problem. But insights are valuable, right? Ideas are plentiful and insights are more rare. Sometimes they're rare for some people, but more rare for everybody. And to me, ideas come from combining and adding things, and insights come from examining or taking away stuff.
So would you say that's your process of almost like brainstorming and then throwing stuff out that doesn't meet your standard?
Yeah, except you almost never get insights in my experience. You don't get many insights from brainstorming, but you get ideas.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. And so to me, ideas are something that like add to the board, the game, the game you're playing, and insights will actually like help you decide like a fundamental way to change how you play the game or whether you play the game at all.
You can own Park Place and never get in jail. So,
and at least in my experience, ideas are generated and insights are captured. We actually had a video from way back where I showed the capture device that I use. And I've given it to you guys already because you have iPhones. And unfortunately, it only works on iPhones because that's what I have. So I wrote these applets for iPhone. But to make capturing your insights as frictionless as possible, because they're fleeting, right? They'll come to you and then they're just gone.
Until I get the chip and plant it in my head.
Yeah. So unless you like grab them at the moment, and grabbing them has to be absolutely easy and trustworthy, then they're just gone. And the number of insights that you have every week would blow you away if they're actually recorded. So we'll get into that later. So to me, you get insights in one of three ways, right? You either alter your perception. A lot of the positioning workshop last month was about asking questions that took people to the reader or prospect side of the table instead of just thinking about their own side of the table. Like, I think the classic question there is like, of the people that they're looking at or the vendors they're looking at, why are you the safer choice?
Mm-hmm.
And most of us don't really think about ourselves as the safer choice. We like to think of ourselves as the new choice or the interesting choice or the better value or we're cheaper. But if you're not the safer or one of the safer choices, you don't make it any further, at least in B2B sales.
So is your portfolio evidence that you are the safer choice?
Okay. Basically, every copywriter and graphic artist has a portfolio just to show that, they have produced something for a company. It's basically just a safety play. The other thing you can do for insights is, and this is one of my favorites really, is just stare at it until it yields to you, or stare at nothing until the insight comes. Everyone's experienced this, right? They've had an insight in the shower. They've had an insight taking a long walk. They've had an insight shaving or whatever, right? Or doing something mechanical and repetitive that unhooks part of their brain so the more creative part can just sort of play along and knows there's no danger to it. And then the third one is you just take things away from the core that everyone else has stopped paying attention to. So this is all kind of high concept stuff. I'm not a fan of the high concept stuff. I like examples. I like lots and lots and lots and lots of examples, and that's what we're going to burn through right now. So
So you don't
the
like
first
to get high.
the first idea was, altering perception with questions and comments, right? So there are questions and comments that I ask clients or that I've come up with, or I ask myself, and a few that I found from other people that I just preserved and kept because they're amazing and they're helpful, right? So a lot of times your insights should be very basic. Insights are not normally super complicated. They're sort of cutting through all of the stuff and getting to the bottom. So, I mean, I sell to businesses. Individuals don't hire copywriters for the most part. And so what do businesses buy? And if you boil it down, they buy stuff that they can't make or do themselves, or they buy stuff that they just wish someone else did. I mean, there aren't many companies that clean their own offices. They could even hire cleaners, but for the most part, they outsource that, right? It's just like, if you know what you're selling and which of these two categories you fall into, it's very helpful. Or let's say it's detrimental if you're in the wrong, if you think you're in one category, but all of your customers think you're in a different category. And then, of course, we talked about safety, and I do mostly B2B. The number one question that corporate buyers have in mind is, how do I know it's safe for me to vouch for you in here? How do I know that I'm not going to lose reputation or my job or my, jeopardize my career or promotion track in here if I champion you and you suck and you blow up, you cost 3 times as much and the project never ends and all this kind of stuff. You don't get the deal because you've proven that it's safe, or you've convinced them that it's safe to, vouch for you, but you won't get the deal if they think it's dangerous. No, you're not worth, no matter how much money you're going to make for a client or how much you're going to save for a client. It doesn't matter. It's not worth me losing my job over if I'm the client. If I'm the person in the company that gets to decide if you get to come closer, if you get to talk to my manager, if you get to talk to the board or the executive steering committee or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then this is not mine. This is from, I think this was from Harvard Business Review. And I think I first heard of it from Rory Sutherland, where, I mean, you need to be honest about what you are to your clients, right? Are you a treat? You're something that they really enjoy and they buy it once in a while. Are you optional for them? There's lots of things in our life that we buy, but they're really optional. You can cut them. Are you something that they want to have and they need, but they can postpone it for quite a while?
I think you got a little sound issue there.
Based on all of these, right? What's
there
that?
you go. Better.
Oh yeah, it's this mic. And then, and of course, essentials. Now, of course, the problem with essentials is for most essentials, it's very price competitive. It's rare that you get to occupy a niche where you're both essential and you have really high margins. But I mean, those businesses do exist. But this comes from Harvard Business Review, maybe, I don't know, 15 years ago. And if you think you're in one category with clients, but you're really in another, then you're going to have a bad day. And so these kind of questions, like, what are you actually selling, and be honest about it, those are the kinds of, say, insight questions where it forces you out of sort of the canal you're in and puts you up on the bank, and then you're looking, oh, there's like more around here than just the canal I was in. And then when I help clients work through problems, messaging problems and ad problems and sort of, prospecting kind of problems, everyone, this is human nature, everyone focuses on what's in front of them. But everything that you're working on has an upstream part of the problem, and then there's the part that you're paying attention to, and then there's a downstream to that part of the problem. And so essentially, to address any of those 3 sections, you're either looking at prevention, right? Sort of, people say the 80-20 rule. If you do this, then you prevent or create X, 88% of this. So a lot of times you should look upstream and look at that third of the problem and then prevent the downstream problem altogether. Or, if you're actually in it and it's too late, you can't prevent it from happening, then it's just mitigation. Almost all of my work when I was in project management was mitigation. And then if you don't do anything or you fail to solve it, then it's suffering. And oddly enough, the sort of the proportions for that are not what you'd think, right? It's not a surprise that if you look upstream, it's easier and cheaper to fix a problem when it's brand new or tiny or before it even happens. And then the middle part, the mitigation, like this, like fills our view, right? I mean, I need to get this done, blah, 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 blah. And then the suffering is small. It's not because we succeed a lot. It's because humans are really good at adapting to suffering. And so it doesn't seem as
Air conditioners. Yeah.
You just get used to it. I mean, there's not a single person watching this right now who doesn't have some sort of chronic ache or pain that they feel every day or every other day or once a week or whenever it's going to rain or whatever, right? And we actually we're so good at putting up with suffering that it seems smaller to us over time, even though it hasn't actually changed. So, I mean, questions like that, where are you and what third of a problem you're looking at? Very helpful question. If you just have a checklist, okay, let's look at this one. What third am I looking at? And if you look upstream, a lot of times you can fix a problem that's sort of chronic by doing something upstream of it. This isn't a question, of course. This is just a caveat or a mantra, really. And whenever possible, you don't compete with other people. Create. There are a lot of books around this, a lot. But it also goes back to what we were talking about before. Basically, instead of competing, creating, you're either like reframing the brief, changing the problem, changing the nature or how you see the problem, or going upstream of the problem to do something else and sort of pivot and make the river go in another direction.
Well, yeah, I mean, you'll be rewarded for being able to innovate as opposed to imitate.
Yeah. I actually stole this one from a overlooked movie from 10 or 12 years ago called Margin Call. Which is a book, in case you've ever seen it. It's a book about the mortgage crash. Except in the CEO, when the movie is about the first firm that realizes that they're holding on to a gigantic steaming pile of crap that if they don't manage to sell fast is going to sink them, but if they sell it, then it's going to sink other firms. But you got to have your priorities, so they sell it themselves, right? And Jeremy Irons is always a fantastic artist and actor. He has this. He says he goes to his number. He looks to his number one in this big early morning, middle of the night conference, and he looks to his number one guy, right? And he says, so what are we going to do? And the guy doesn't say anything because he doesn't quite want to say out loud what they're going to have to do, which is basically save themselves from being Lehman Brothers. And Jeremy Irons says, what have I told you from the first day you were in my office? In this business, to make money, you either be first, be smarter, or cheat. And he says, now I don't cheat. And there are a lot of smart people in this building, but it's always a hell of a lot easier to just be first. And when you're trying to solve whatever problem you're looking at, and remembering that all problems have they exist in three places in time, right? There's the upstream, the middle, and the downstream. That you can suffer through it like a boss, right? That's the suffering part, or you can be smarter and try to think your way through it. And that's the mitigation part in the middle. But it is a heck of a lot easier to always look at whatever you're working on and thinking, is there anything upstream of this that would actually wipe out this problem in the first place? And that's something to apply. Honest to God, if you looked at this and you say, I'd just like to be first. I would just like to see what I could do upstream to prevent this. A lot of problems in your business minimize or go away pretty quickly. It's been great. All right. This is one of the most popular slides with the most conversation that I have with any prospective client. You guys have seen this slide many, many times.
Move.
This is one of mine, right? And basically, I talk about how you need to create a gap and then fill the gap. And I use a really silly example, which is milk. So in case you haven't seen me explain this slide before, the three positions, the three sort of marketing messages or positions, using a very silly example of milk, we could use green eyes, we could use whatever we wanted, right? Is that there's X. In this case, X is milk. There's X, and we've all been told and we've assumed for our whole lives or whatever that X was good for us, X was beneficial in some way, X was the way to do something. Turns out it wasn't. So there's your gap. There's a disconnect, right?
I thought it was excellent.
The next option is, turns out X is the way to do stuff. It has been, good for us. It's fine, but it either recently changed or an upcoming change is going to make that statement untrue. And you're either already slightly behind the curve or you could get ahead of the curve. Let me tell you how. And then the third one is, yes, X is fantastic. Why? Fine. But that's for everyone else. You're different. You're special. And so you need something different from in order to solve the same problem or achieve the same thing. And here it is.
This reminds me of algorithms, like for various social platforms or so.
All right. And then I'm not sure you can read this. Depends on the size of the screen and stuff. But on the left, it says sales.
Yeah,
And
we
the guy's holding a poster board, and it just says to Jacksonville. And then on the right-hand side, it's marketing, and it says to moms for Christmas.
there you go.
Right. That's the difference.
Pull on those heartstrings.
It's exactly the same guy going to the same place at the same time for the same reason, but one of them is he's talking about what he wants to do, and on the right hand side he's talking about sort of a shared story that a lot of us could understand and empathize with. Oh, and I just grabbed this one just because I liked it. I've had Oatly, and they took an actual quote from a survey they did of people who had tried their product. And just to show you that there's a way to slice and dice almost anything in order to, in fact, we have a slide coming up that talks about reframing things. And this is basically exactly the same thing. All right. So those were the examples where you alter your perception and stuff. These are some more examples of what came out of staring at things, just focused boredom. Now, I'll ask, have either of you guys seen, this was famous in the 20s and it's been around ever since. Have you ever seen, it's a painting by Magritte. I think it's currently in LA.
I think at the Getty or someplace.
It might be at the Getty. So in case your French is a little rusty, it says this is not a pipe.
I used to know this. That's the problem. It's escaped me now. No, it's not an ear horn. It's not pipe. It's not.
Well, here's the thing. This is an art installation, right? And then you can go see it live. But the point is, sometimes you get an insight by staring at something if you get close and you stare into it. And then if that's not yielding anything, back up a lot and then stare at it. And then once you back up enough, if you were looking at this hanging from the wall at the Getty or wherever it is, and you back up far enough and you just keep saying to yourself, this is not a pipe. This is not a pipe. Then it becomes clear it's not a pipe. It's a painting of a pipe.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to be close and stare at it to get an insight on something, but sometimes you just
it
need
was
to be far enough away from it.
So
It's not a pipe. It's a painting of a pipe. And so back off, right? Just give it
back
some
off,
room.
Jack.
And suddenly, you see it in a new perspective, and there it is. There's your insight. Don't get close sometimes. Back off.
Back off, not F off.
One of the others that this came from the work I was doing on corporate webinars a couple of years ago. And there's like a list of questions that I have for writing the script for those things. And one of them is why now? And anyone who's ever been in any kind of pitch or sales meeting or whatever is like, why now? Especially in B2B, where in B2B, there's almost no danger to delaying or not make a decision today. Right. Over time, it was dangerous to not make the decision. But today, it's not that dangerous.
Reminds me of IBM, because portfolio managers in the 60s and 70s never would be criticized for doing anything, for investing in IBM. But over time, there wasn't a sense of urgency and innovation.
Right. So it's very hard to answer why now in a B2B pitch. Everyone focuses on answering the why you, right? Oh, well, we're this and we're this big and this, we have this new product and, our customer service is great, blah, 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 which is all fine. And you kind of need to have that in line. But the most immediate payoff is figuring out how to answer why now, because that's where almost all the money is. If you can convince a corporate buyer or a B2B buyer that they need to make this decision now, that this purchase should happen this month or this quarter or no later than the end of this year, that's worth way more of your brain power than pouring more effort into prettier slides about why you and showing off pictures.
Competitors are going to eat your lunch if you don't do this.
Right. You have almost, in some situations, in others, you might have the field wide open if you can figure out how to, why what you are talking about and offering is compelling and they need to buy it.
Yeah.
So we mentioned this a little bit earlier, right? And I really stand on this one. Imagination is free, but still rare, especially in sales messages and a lot of marketing messages, right? And every weakness you have is a strength if you just reframe it as a strength. You just need to think of it that way. Like whatever you try to cover up, whatever you try to, paper over, whatever you try to get customers to stop talking about, or asking about, so you can talk about this other thing that you'd rather talk about. All of those weaknesses can be reframed as strengths. Now, they might not agree that it's a strength that they care about, but it can be reconceived and reconceptualized as a strength. You just have to put in the imagination to figure out how to do it.
And this is where your insights can come from, because you have a completely different perspective.
So I'll give you an example. I, for the most part, do not do. Almost every copywriter does content creation, like content marketing. They write blog posts and articles and stuff, and God bless them, because that's needed. But I don't really do any of that work. I almost always pass it off to, except in very special circumstances, I'll pass off that work to someone else. And to me, it's not a weakness of my business. First of all, I don't want to compete with 95% of everyone in my market. But secondly, it's a strength because I specialize in stuff that everyone is going to see, not what some person might see today if Google sends them to one blog post. So it had to be reimagined as a strength. But once I figured that out and figured out how to pitch it, which I did not just do, but it helped a lot. One of the things recently that we talked about in as far as staring at something and breaking it down and figuring out is that almost all niches, at least for small businesses and coaches and fractional executives and folks like that, almost all niches break down into these 4 categories. Right? There's the who and the where, which is the people that you serve, or some sort of geographical location, or industry that you, or vertical that you focus on. And there's the what you do. Maybe you do something that not a lot of people do, like me. Or there's the why you do it, and we said this is mostly you see this a lot in nonprofits. You see it in some marketing agencies. If you go to their website and they have something along that reads like a manifesto, like we believe that people are the solution. That's their niche is sort of a why niche as opposed to a what or a who and where niche. And then what seems to be the closest dollar, like the way that you can start closing a sale, getting a new client, and getting paid, is a how niche, which is not what you do necessarily, but how you do it. And it only just now occurred to me in that moment. This is how
it's an insight.
It's so hard to get out of your own head, right? And look at yourself. I'm actually a how niche, aren't I? I don't even show them the what or the who or the where. I mean, I don't care. No one looks at that portfolio. They want to know how I approach it. I didn't think I was a how niche. I thought I was a what niche. Turns out I'm a how niche.
How now, brown cow?
Okay, well, at least I learned something. If no one else learned anything, that's great. I'm coming away from this better off, man. I'm good. Solid. And then we've talked before many times about the second right answer. Like, just put in the thinking. After you come up with the first answer that's good enough and gets you there, stop before you give that to anybody or implement it. Just take some time. Depending on the nature of the problem, you might only have minutes, you might have weeks or months, but take the time if you have it and think about, okay, that was a right answer. Like, that's a good answer. Is there an alternative to that? Don't say better answer, but you can say second answer. And most of the time you want the second answer. The second answer is where you gave your brain enough time or your team enough time to have inspiration. And they've managed to combine it with something or take something away. And it's like, yes, that's a second right answer.
So isn't the first right answer often more conventional?
Yes.
Okay.
It's what your brain can come up with. I mean, I don't know how it works, but for people that I talk to, I can ask them a question about like a social trend or political issue or whatever. Even if they've never thought about it before, they can tell you their opinion on it almost instantly. We're really good at coming up with opinions on stuff. right? That's a first right answer. I mean, they're not wrong if they say that they're against this or they're pro this or whatever. I mean, they're not wrong, even if they've never thought about it before. But if they, wait and think it through, they'll probably have a second right answer where there's nuance or an element to it they hadn't thought of before, or a different way to approach it that works better for them or something. There's almost always a second right answer.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's more like almost your first right answer is more
like a pat answer,
reflexive, right? Or knee-jerk reaction. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the one that loops all the way back to the beginning, right? And like coming through this, and I'll take time to explain this. Coming through this, and there's a few slides that build on this one. It gets us to a different concept. I said that I have a weird job, and I think your job's probably a lot more like mine than you think. I think most of us aren't selling our time or our output, like results. We might be getting paid based on the number of hours we worked, or we have a set number of hours we're supposed to work or whatever, or we're getting paid based on results, but or output. But ultimately, we sell our attention to something. I'm selling my attention to your problem. I don't know. Do you have any questions on this? Because you guys,
I think we had some sound issues again. So with your microphone,
you guys have pushed back on this before, right? But I contend that most of us, especially in sort of knowledge worker kind of work, most of us are selling our attention to a problem or a set of problems. We're not selling our time or output. And if you think about your work and your schedule and how you approach things based on how much attention you're going to give it, as opposed to how much time you're going to spend on it or what the results or output are going to be, you end up refactoring your schedule and how you approach your work. People don't put in a credit card and buy my attention, right? They put in a credit card to buy my time. It's denoted in terms of time, and with an understanding that my attention is what they're really buying, and the output of that is some writing. But to me, when I'm factoring in, like, when am I going to schedule this client's work, and what am I going to get done today, and so on, it's about how much attention and focus I can give them or give any client, and then charging accordingly.
So it's like, take a look at my problem.
Yeah.
Pay attention to me.
Yeah, I mean, you can sub in different things for attention, right? I mean, attention is sort of an umbrella. You could talk about energy, you could talk about focus, whatever. But ultimately, that's what you're selling, and that's what you're scheduling and building a schedule around, not 40 hours.
Yeah, it's the whole consulting coaching thing. I mean,
right. And nobody has 40 hours of attention.
Yeah.
Right. From 9 to 5 every day. It's not a thing.
You're lucky if you get 2.5 hours.
Yeah. And then one of the other things that we talked about early on in our series of 100 videos is that literally everyone, everywhere outsources these three things to some degree. Actually, almost all of the labor and analysis or thinking and creativity in your life, virtually all of it, you've outsourced to someone else. I'm talking into a microphone. I have no idea how to make a microphone.
Right.
I don't, most of the food you eat, you outsourced almost all the labor and a lot of the analysis and creativity for how to get it to you. When I first moved to America, I was having lunch at an Applebee's with someone who was also starting at the same company that I was starting with, but came from a very different part of the world and a much harder part of the world, hotter, Hotter part of the world. And I said, so, I mean, for me, moving here from Canada, I find that it's mostly, 1,000 tiny differences, but not a lot of huge differences living in America. And he said, and I said, so like, what's different for you? And our salads had just arrived. And he said, well, salad was one of the first things. When I first went out with the team a few times, they would order salads, and like I ordered them, but and it arrives. And he said, Dean, do you know what salad is? It's uncooked leaves. And I thought about that, and I said, you're not wrong in that you really mostly have salads in places where you can have end-to-end refrigeration.
Mm-hmm.
So
a lot of people don't have that.
A lot of work and creativity and thinking went into how to do end-to-end refrigeration from farm to table.
Yeah, the refrigerated truck. Somebody had to
so
make it.
you're eating
Sure.
just a plain piece of lettuce with some, dressing on it. You've outsourced 99% of all the labor and analysis and creativity to have that. Now, the trick is, of course, once you start adding in attention to those things, then you get labor, but it's very focused and specialized and valuable labor, right? And very focused and specialized analysis and focused and specialized creativity. And then you're selling something, whether you're selling one of these or even all three of these, right? I put in the combine all three thing this morning, and I thought about it and said, I've got a note for myself to actually think about, can I think of a business that does a great job of insourcing to them, or is it selling me all three of these things at once? I bet there are. I bet there are lots of them.
I'm sure.
Apple would be a good example.
Yeah. Movie studios would be one.
Yeah, that would be one.
Right. The logistics for producing a movie are insane. Right. I read this article. It was about the making of the first Wonder Woman movie. And at any given time, they said 700 people were on set.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of employees to manage in one place doing many different jobs. And so, but just the way, you just think about it. You're selling to somebody either your labor or your analysis or thinking about something. I don't track what's happening to the price of oil. There are lots of people who do that and understand why oil is getting more or less expensive. And technically, I'm in the creativity business, but even so, most of the creativity in my life has been outsourced to someone else. They design products that I use and services that I like and movies that I watch and books that I read. Mm-hmm. And so all of us, no matter what field we're in, have outsourced a lot of that stuff, but we're also selling one of these three things to other people. And it's awfully helpful to know who you are and what you're doing and for whom. All right. And then the last category is for insights is you take things away until you find a core. Because, and we've used this slide a lot, right? Everything is built on assumptions. A lot of the times the assumptions are so old, they're no longer valid, but the stuff that we've built on top of them, we still use every day until someone looks at it hard and realizes, you know what? This is no longer true, right? I could make a new business where this other assumption isn't like factored in anymore. And that's when you get like a disruptive business and everyone looks at it and say, that's so simple. Like, it's so obvious. Why didn't I think of that? And that's what you end up with. They realize that something was no longer true.
It reminds me of, you accept the major premise, accept the punchline.
Yeah. It didn't advance. I don't know why. There we go. All right. Now, this concept is like partly mine, but I have to give credit to a guy in the UK called Dave Trott, who works in advertising. And this is another topic we've talked about in previous videos. So I know there's not much on here, and so I'll have to explain what it is. For anything you're thinking about, anything. I had to write a booklet recently for someone about the first steps when you're looking at creating like a marketing strategy. And the problem everyone runs into when they're not familiar with something is if it's been around for even 5 minutes, while it started with certain core concepts, and if you just live and breathe those core concepts, all of the other decisions you have to make about something are a lot easier. We almost never get to see the core concepts in something anymore. Instead, all we see is this array. So you imagine, okay, you're a new business, and every one of these little blue boxes represents something like, okay, should I advertise on Facebook? Should I be posting on LinkedIn? Should I be following anybody on Twitter? Should I be cold calling? If I'm cold calling, like what script should I be using and what time of day? And this is like the awesomeness of the human race, right? We can take anything with some solid core concepts, and then we will, without anyone directing us to do it, slice and dice and combine and split and recombine and make variations and gradations of literally everything until when you're at the end of it, when you're like, the people in the green, you come into it when it's matured a bit, and all you see is all of this layer of choices and options and tools and services. And no one ever like says, hey, before you try to make a decision on, what to carve out from this vast collection of options, here are the core concepts. And so here's an example for that. Okay. There's all of marketing in just 3 sentences. I need to tell a lot of people what I sell, so enough of them see it as the way to flip their negative present into a positive future and feel that paying me is the way to get that positive future. Mm-hmm. That's it. Every other decision about what you make, and if you're going to advertise on Facebook, and if you're going to have a sign outside your building, and whether or not you're going to cold call people or do public speaking or whatever, all you need to understand is that as long as it aligns with these 3 core concepts, you're fine. Then it's just a matter of measurement and trial and error. But you don't have to be overwhelmed by the choice. You just have to understand the 3 core concepts underneath all of marketing. And very similar for sales. In fact, I think the only thing that changes is the first line is instead of selling, I need to tell a lot of people what I sell. If you're in sales, because you're actually like trading time for someone else's attention, your own, I need to tell the right people what I sell. If you're in sales, you're never going to talk to 1 million people in a year, whereas you could in marketing. So it's more important then, since time is a perishable resource, to, as much as possible, talk to the right people, the people who are most likely to buy. But that's it. That's all of sales in 3. Any tools you want to use, any CRM, any training, whatever, just needs to satisfy one of those 3 questions. And if it doesn't, or 3 sentences, and if it doesn't, then it's probably extraneous and you need it right now. And then I have to ask myself this recently, is if I couldn't do my main thing anymore, like what would I do instead? Like if I couldn't make money doing X, if I was no longer capable of doing this, what would I do instead? This is not a comfortable question. And you should not, this is a question where you absolutely should try to get the second right answer. Don't accept the first thing that comes into your head or what you have in the first 5 minutes. Right? Really think about, okay, I couldn't do this anymore. Think of it in terms of a disability. Like, I write. Could I write if I lost my right hand? I'm right-handed. And could I do that? What would I do instead? Is there another way that I could make money? Or if for some reason a competitor came into the market and they could do what I do way better and way faster or way cheaper than I do, and sort of like knocks out my main value prop, like what's my plan B for that? And like I said, there's a right answer and a second right answer in most questions. You definitely want the second right answer in this one. The right answer.
Plan C. Is there a plan C, which is your third right answer?
I don't know. There's usually not a third right answer. You're usually on a very different topic by the time you get past your second right answer, in my experience. But what's your plan B? These are the assumptions and insights that, this is the kind of question that forces you to think about something you haven't thought about before.
I was going to say B for barista, but that's definitely not my good answer. So.
Right. One of the first things I have to sort of establish when I'm talking to people who want copywriting services is most of them come at me and they say, I know what I want to say. I need you to help me figure out the best way to say it. And I'll look at it and right away it's like, okay, no, this is not going to work, because to that person already has a very full life. John, if you remember back, we did a video once with the Stephen Covey demonstration where he's got the rocks the size of your fists with like spirituality and family and career, and then he's got all of like sand.
Right.
And if you put the sand in first and then try to put the rocks in, even though they will all fit, it's a lot of work to sort of grind down the rocks to make sure everything fits in there. Whereas if you put the rocks in first and then fill in the sand will fill every nook and cranny and space between the rocks. And his idea, we took it further. His idea there was, of course, so like you focus on the priorities in life, and all of the other parts of life, they will fit themselves around whatever you're doing. The 2 lessons to take from that are the jar is full either way. So getting anything else into the jar is hard, and you're something that wants to get into the jar. And secondly, we think that we're the rocks in other people's lives and in our prospects' lives and our market's lives. We're not the rocks in their lives. We're sand. We're a piece of sand. And you need to come at it with that idea, and then talk about them to talk about you. Because people have, the example I give is people have a thimbleful of attention for a stranger talking about themselves. And we have an ocean full of potential attention for strangers who are talking to us about us. And why would you fight that? But everyone wants to come in with, oh yeah, I have it in my head, and here's what I want to say, and I'm gonna affect people. And but like, don't do that. Like, get on the other side of that equation and talk about them to talk about you. I think we're almost done here. Or another way of phrasing that is, don't tell them your story, right? Tell them their story with you in it. We did that a little while ago. There's a couple more slides after this. So this is just, I really do. This is the main headline on my website. And it's because it really is the number one sort of idea here is you tell customers their story with you in it. You don't try to tell strangers about yourself and then be frustrated when they don't listen or pay attention to you. So there are 3 earlier videos about this. I wouldn't bother. Obviously, don't try to type these or grab these right now. Anyone who registered is going to get a PDF, and the link will be in there. Also, if you're watching this after it's live, if you go to waycreative.com/event, which is like it's on the title slide of the very first thing we ever did here, then you can actually register there starting tomorrow and get it there instead. But we talk about the difference between creativity and creative thinking and how to do both and how to generate, lots of ideas and tools and tricks we use and stuff. I did want to put in a couple or 3 tools, 3 types of tools, because they made a lot of sense based on earlier videos that we've done. So the MindNode and XMind are mind mapping tools, and Workflowy is a text-based outliner. And a mind mapping tool and an outliner are the same thing. They just show you the information differently. One of them is a visual outline, and one of them is sort of a text vertical outline. But they're interchangeable, and in most of those programs, you can export back and forth between the 2 of them. I think people miss the point for outliners, and a lot of times they miss the point for mind mapping as well. They think, okay, I'll just get in there, and then I'll type something, and then that will spark another idea. That sparks these other ideas, and next thing you know, I've blossomed and fill out this whole thing. That's half the equation. The other half of the equation is being able to pick up an idea, but it's on a screen. So pick it up and move it. Treat it like it's a 3D object and move it next to something else or underneath something else or nestle it into something else that you didn't originally think to do. Being able, it's the equivalent of sometimes you'll see on a wall a bunch of Post-it notes, right? And people can move around the Post-it notes to show the different relations and connections between ideas. The whole point of these kinds of tools like Concepts or OneNote, the third category here is if you're using a stylus, a tablet kind of thing, is that being able to treat what used to be an ephemeral just thought as a 3D object and to move it around and stretch it and duplicate it and put it in a bunch of places. It's very powerful. Very powerful. Probably the main reason to use any of these tools. And then check this out. So I gave this away. This is a little, is 2 little applets that I made for iPhone. If you have iPhone or iPad, you'll get copies of these. They're free and they work great. Whenever I have an idea, I always have my phone or an iPad with me. I just pull it out and I tap one of these 2 little shortcuts and I start typing, and it will, as soon as I click done, what it's doing is it's opening up a note and then putting it into Apple Notes for me. And I'll show you what it looks like. If I'm driving or walking or just can't type, I just click the other one and it transcribes as I speak. This is all built into Apple iOS and iPadOS. You don't need to buy anything for this. And so it's free to get, free to use. And then you'll see now I'm flipping back. I'm going to show you. I open up the note, which is called Catch It. And everything that I typed and everything that I said is put in there. Sorry, I didn't freeze it in time. Is just added there as a log with a date and a timestamp. And so in my process, and I've been doing this for years and years now, I once a week, ideally twice a week, but usually never more than once because, life happens. I'll open up that document. And every single time for hundreds and hundreds of weeks in a row, I have seen something in that document that clearly I thought of and recorded it for me, but I have no recollection of writing it. And you'll end up using this many, many times a day. And then once a week or so, you go back, you say, yeah, you'll find that you solved your problem or something you're working on like 4 days ago. And then you forgot because these things are so ephemeral. This is the difference between ideas and insights, right? Ideas are captured, or rather insights are captured as much as they're ever generated. Ideas, you'll just generate them, whatever. But insights have to be captured, and the capture has to be frictionless, and you have to be absolutely sure you can depend on it If you don't think it's going to accurately record or it might fail to record your insight, you're not going to use the tool. And then if you don't use the tool's not very valuable. But I think, yeah. So these are shared. You may or may not even know that you have the Shortcuts app built into your phone or your iPad, but that's just what it's called. It's just called Shortcuts. You do need to be using the latest version of iOS and iPadOS for both of these to work. The latest version of iOS came in on last month, and the latest version 16 point something for iPadOS was just released a few days ago. So you'll need to upgrade. But once you do, this tool, which I can tell you used to be very, very complicated, and I had to do a lot of different sort of programmatic acrobatics to make it work and be reliable. With the iOS 16 or iPadOS 16.1 releases, now it's just 4 steps. And one of those steps is just it automatically returns you to the home screen, because I like to just record it and then know that it's gone and not have to look at it and stuff. It's just gone. I capture it as fast as it's gone, and then I'll go look at it later. And so really it's just 3 steps. And you're welcome to have these. It's very easy. What'll happen is you just click on the link from your iPhone or from your iPad. I would recommend using Safari, the web browser Safari for this, since it's the one that's built in. And you'll just get a little pop-up and say, do you want to install this? And you just say yes. And then that's it. There's instructions inside each one of them that shows you how to do it. I'm not providing tech support for these things, all right? But I do encourage you to try it. Once you have a frictionless, completely dependable way to capture every fleeting insight you have in your life, you will be shocked at how creative you are. You will be shocked at how creative you've always been. All right, I think that's it, John. Yep, that's it. So, like I said, folks, if you registered, then I will send you a PDF of all this, and it'll include these links and kind of stuff, so you can grab it. I haven't paid any attention to the chat at all, John. Is there anything that we should talk about? Or the other chat?
Well, I can just kind of summarize some of the different comments that came up. One user said they don't care what you know until they know what you care.
That's a good one.
Yep.
Very much so.
The best way to think of the business of movie making is that every movie is accompanied with a set end date.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Also very true.
I love that.
Yep. VW's Lemon, the first reframing ad ever, and still never beat. And I think those are those. Whoops, excuse me, dropped something off my desk. Those make up some of the major comments we got for today.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at least I now figured out what niche I belong to. That was helpful for me. So yay me! I can pat on the shoulder for me, because
yay you
out of this. All right, I guess.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today.
Thanks, everyone. This will live on as a recording, and you'll get an email from me sometime tomorrow with the slides and links and all that kind of stuff. I really appreciate that you registered and appreciate that you attended. And if you're seeing this later on YouTube or whatever, appreciate you watching. Bye.